physically coming back at Royal Rumble, costing Bayley an opportunity to either retain, causing Bayley to either lose a title.
Wait a minute. Do my eyes deceive me?
What in the no? Now it's time for me to cut a Rock promo. What in the blue hell is going on?
Backstage Brawl, you already know what it is. It is your boy Jean-Louis, a.k.a. The Golden Child, here with Kid Dynamite. We're recording here Tuesday, September 15th, day after Raw. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to you guys over the course of this past week for a second pod, but we're here today. It's a very, very busy week. People are getting back into school. People are getting back into the workforce amid the 2020 circumstances, so we don't have the whole group here today. That being said, live from WWF New York, it's your boy again, Jean-Louis. We here with Kid Ty, and
I'm in one of the office buildings. That's why I don't have the fancy ass background.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
but
that's what's going on.
There's so much different things that we weren't able to get into because we were recording on the day of Super Tuesday last week on NXT, of which we're going to get into later. Shouts out to Finn Balor. But I want to kick it off on Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw, happened this past last night, and there was a little bit of some interesting stuff there. Your Hurt Business came out and they basically handled some business. Cedric Alexander destroyed Ricochet with, again, Tyler hit it on the nail on the head with the cleanest lumbar check ever known to man, and that was his first singles heel lumbar check. So if that's going to be the one, imagine the other ones. But there's a lot of things that happened on Raw. Braun Strowman showed up. This whole brand inclusion thing saw Cesaro and Nakamura versus the Street Profits. You had, the whole situation with, the main event scene. Keith Lee going up against Drew McIntyre, and they're kind of bumping heads. And then Retribution comes in, Monday Night Raw. So much things is going on Raw. What would you say, Ty, your biggest takeaway from Monday Night Raw?
It was like a cliffhanger episode, right? There's a lot of questions you want answered in the future. So it's sort of like this is what they springboard off of to get to a certain destination. For me, obviously, one of my favorite parts was seeing how Cedric worked as a heel. We've mentioned it in previous podcast episodes, and I've said it before. I think that Cedric Alexander was the best fit for the storyline for the newest recruit of the Hurt Business, because he, out of the three potential people that everyone was kind of like predicting would join, he was the one that needed it the most. Mustafa Ali and Ricochet are genuine baby faces that the company needs. The answer to making someone interesting isn't always, turn them heel. It's not always turn them heel. I've always said it myself. While turning someone heel can make them interesting, it usually only lasts for a short-term burst. What makes somebody interesting is giving us a reason to care. And that's what a lot of people equate turning heel to. Yes, it by default gives you a reason to care, but it doesn't solve the problem all the time. It has to fit the narrative that they're going for. It has to fit the storyline. It has to be good timing, and it has to have a long-term plan to make the heel turn matter. So for me, a guy like Ricochet or a guy like Mustafa Ali, both of these guys have this amazing ability to be so beloved despite where they're at. And they work so well as baby faces. They come across as people you genuinely want to cheer for, that I knew the only thing that they really needed is a purpose and a destination, a reason to move and a place to move to. And they would be able to recapture the magic that a lot of people fell in love with them in the first place. A guy like Cedric Alexander, from a storyline perspective, being one of the first cruiserweights of his generation of cruiserweights to have to graduate to the other divisions, to not be stuck on 205 Live as the exclusive island. For him to have had a decent 2018, doing his thing, him going to 2019, kind of like, he had an unexpected short burst of momentum on Raw, got through the stuff with AJ Styles similar to Ricochet, And then he was unfortunately taken off, rumors of Vince McMahon not liking him, regardless of what's true and what's not. He didn't have the best year last year, and it wasn't getting any better earlier this year. So the fact that they use that, they haven't used it, but you can allude to it in the future, and you can have a guy like Cedric Alexander who can easily play that, like, I'm not playing around type of character or that mentality, using all that as fuel.
It's funny you say that, because like last week, like yesterday actually, it ended off with the Hurt Business coming after Retribution. It was random, like because again, Raw has done this thing where they kind of coincide all these different storylines, and you had the lingering Drew McIntyre Keith Lee matchup that was a no contest because Retribution got involved. And here's this heel team, this heel faction, Hurt Business, who basically was like, oh, word, you're going to put your nose in our business. We're going to pull up and we're going to handle our business. 4 men going up against God knows how many people in Retribution, aka NXT, castaways. And then they just wreak havoc. Win, lose, or draw, they went to whoop ass. So you could see that mean streak, especially from Cedric, leading off into the, Sheltons, the Bobbies, and the MVP. So, like, I think as random as last night was, like, it did some good, especially, like, and then we could tie it all the way into, like, the some good with the Dominik Mysterio, because we had news, there was news about, like, this man being high on Dominik Mysterio. And it's like, bro, like, I mean, at first, like, if you take a step back, you could sit there, because I remember when I first saw Rollins versus Mysterio, I was like, man, is this 2K? Is this like Universe Mode where I'm watching it every week and there's gonna be like Seth Rollins with manager versus Mysterio, or Mysterio, and then you get into it, you just like, I don't know how they're doing this, but it's one of those cases where he's thrown right into the fire, and for whatever reason, every week is something fresh.
That's something I even brought up. I think I brought it up even back as far as then, like when it comes to WWE coming up with a lot of wacky ideas. Yes, some of them are distasteful, some of them make no sense, this and that, and they probably shouldn't have been booked in the first place. And a lot of us thought that early on. Ray being on Raw is already weird for most people who like Ray. And then seeing him kind of just floating around storyline from storyline, it's like, this feels like Ray in a parallel universe, him fighting Brock on Raw, him being US champion when we're so used to him being cruiserweight and intercontinental champion, like, there's so many like weird images of Ray where it's like, it doesn't even feel like it's part of his career at times. It just feels like this is like some alternate what could have been. But, I said it before, like, WWE can come up with some pretty stupid storylines, but I would respect them a lot more for it if they work through the stupidity and try to make sense out of it, or at least use it as a way to leeway into better stories. Because at the end of the day, we watch it in real time and live. But when you think of it from a retrospective point of view or from an archival point of view, it feels random when you see these giant breaks in storylines where it's like this guy goes from being this to that without them trying to make some sense out of it. People brought that up with the Jinder Mahal thing back in 2017, where it was like he started off as a jobber and he went from being a jobber recently brought back by the company to WWE champion. And there wasn't any way for the company on television to explain why this makes sense or why we should care outside of the shock value of he won the number one contenders match and he won the title. It's just like, oh, it happened, we have to accept it. And when you get to the point where you have fans giving fan theories as to why, or trying to like dig into the smallest of details, trying to make sense out of something, you failed, because you have to make it thorough enough that a hardcore fan can enjoy the elements of the story, but you have to make it obvious enough that someone can pick up on it without having to dig too deep into why this is going on. You know what I mean? And that's something that most people appreciate in great writing in any medium. And in the case of Mysterio, like how it started off as Seth and Ray, or just Seth's, Monday Night Messiah thing in general, segueing into working with the Mysterio family, I give them a lot more credit than I did months ago, because the fact that they're still rolling with it and trying to make something out of it and trying to, make it credible and make it watchable and make it like not a waste of your time, I appreciate that. The fact that Dominik has excelled, and I say excelled in the sense that like no one who's in their third match in their career should be able to hang like this. You're used to seeing people, regardless of how much training they have, get jitters, get nervous, make mistakes, right? So for him to be doing as well as he is, and for him to be rocking with somebody like Seth Rollins, who, yes, is obviously helping him and his dad, or helping to like orchestrate most of it, but like it takes two to tango. It takes two to make a good match. And even if the other person is the one leading the charge, you have to be the one to react. You have to make that person's stuff look good. You have to make the other person look like the character that they are and play your role. And Dominik is able to do that while also making himself look good, which is a quality that his dad perfected time in and time out. So I'm not surprised that Vince McMahon is very high on him and loving the fact that he's able to do this. My hope is that, knowing Vince McMahon, who likes to jump the gun on a lot of things, I hope he doesn't put more pressure on Dominik, because he's doing well right now. Let it rock, let it marinate. You can even segue him into lesser feuds to allow him to, build some more experience under his belt. You don't have to push him to the moon just because I saw the reports like, oh, he's a top babyface in Mrs. Eyes. I'm like, yeah, by default, sure. Like, not that he hasn't earned it, but like, yeah, he's a top babyface. But don't do what you did with Charlotte and the other multi-generational like prodigies. Just
And with that too, because it's like, I feel like it's a case where it's the talent, right? It's the talent that's overriding the story. Because as I mentioned to you, because I saw a steel cage stipulation, I was like, what's going to happen next?
Shades of Eddie and Ray from 2005, where like Ray came up and Eddie's like, "Where are you going, Ray?"
Yeah, exactly. Right? We're gonna get that to that later, because Bayley, there's a whole bunch of Eddie Guerrero.
We need to edit that in. That face was priceless.
But like, I think that it does have we're in a good period right now, a good honeymoon phase with Dominik Mysterio, where it's like we could go either one way or the other, because again, the stipulations are starting to happen. It's on Raw. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I will say credit to WWE, because they did put a little bit of a wrinkle on this. People are making some theories about Aaliyah. Basically, Buddy Murphy getting his ass whooped. Okay, excuse me. Murphy getting his ass whooped. Aaliyah basically helping him out. Could we see potentially Aaliyah getting into some storylines? We see like the
Alexa. Again, it's a cliffhanger episode. It's very open-ended. You don't know, and that's a good thing. Like obviously with us being hypersensitive to WWE's like BS stop and start bookings and weird swerves. I mean, we lived through the whole anonymous general manager storyline. So talk about starting off with a lot of potential and turning into complete garbage. But I think that Aaliyah is like, coming to Murphy's aid and being concerned for him. It adds another layer of, okay, so this isn't over, and it can be more interesting now because you have the potentials for maybe Murphy seeks redemption from the Mysterio family. Maybe the Mysterios look at Murphy as like, you could be a family friend. Maybe he's a double agent, purposely allowing himself to be hurt to get on the good side of the Mysterio family to break them within. And what better way than to, I mean, you could have this stereotypical, win your way into the daughter's heart, which I don't think any of us really need to see. Yeah. You also have the whole, like, maybe he's not as bad as we think, and then he turns on Dominik and, breaks Aaliyah's trust and, this and that. Like, it wouldn't be the first time that they've used Aaliyah as a way to get heat. Like, if we remember, not saying that that's right, obviously, phrasing, but it like CM Punk, the infamous Happy Birthday Aaliyah episode of SmackDown. So it's not like Aaliyah hasn't been put in this position, but seriously, these Mysterio children,
right?
At young ages, it's like, what? But
yeah, they went through so much pain over the years. Like,
why can't they just go to school that Friday or Tuesday back then when they were taped? Like, why did they have to show up?
I want to know.
Like, imagine talking to the parents about that. Like, what type of note?
I want to know what the conversation was like. In how old was Dominik? Probably what, second grade, third grade?
Yeah.
When the Eddie situation was happening, what was the conversations in that classroom?
I feel like Dominik had one of those stern teachers It was like, and gave him a note like, I'm gonna be out for this and that. And I feel like the teacher was like, okay, but if your ass ain't on TV, then you getting detention. Like I feel like it was something like that. Because those, all I'm saying is those had to be the most hilarious absentee
Yes.
notes of all time.
Yes.
Like,
I'm
or at least in the top
at
20.
working a wrestling event. Gonna be in the main event tonight. Bye.
Don't tell any of the classmates that it's a work or it's not fake. It's a work.
Meanwhile, like 3/4 of the classroom is just like, yo, your uncle's your dad, son. Damn.
Not to dwell too much on that, but when he was
hey, grade school, you know, we've been through some rough grade schools. We know how grade school can be cruel. So it is.
I'm mad because like it took me years to find out, like to realize, like they literally booked that like a telenovela storyline down to a T, and I was just like, Vince, even when the shit is like intriguing, you're stereotypical. Jesus Christ, like
we gotta keep it pushing. I do want to touch on right quick. You know, table the tag discussion. I want to save that for that. I'm gonna leave that to Big E and Mean Gene. That's Nia Jax section. We gonna leave that alone. I want to talk to you about Asuka Mickie James, a match that started off fantastic, ended off prematurely, and unfortunately you have the Mickie James situation of which she may had suffered an injury in the match.
well, yeah.
Yeah,
It's the age-old adage. The age-old adage: you don't want to see anyone get hurt in sports of any kind or any type of performance. I will say this: I enjoy the fact that this match happened because this was literally the match that Mickie James returned to WWE with, and now especially with Mandy Rose moving over to Raw and this and that, like I'm actually curious as to what they're trying to do, like what moves they're trying to make with the women's division, because like we've been on their ass for months about how like the women's division doesn't feel very interesting, in no part due to the talents, but more so the direction of the talents. It really does come down to creative, because Asuka and Mickie James felt like a big deal for us the second time around, because the caliber of the talents. These are two people who have been misused and often been used as a means to an end for the selected few, whether it be the Four Horsewomen or Alexa Bliss in the prime of her being over pushed on Raw and SmackDown. You want to see these two succeed. So seeing them in that spotlight was very nice. I hope Mickie James is okay, of course, which is actually kind of interesting because in terms of title matches, it's within the family, because Nick Aldis and as we're recording, Nick Aldis and Mike Bennett are in the midst of their matchup for the NWA Championship. So hopefully we'll be able to review that pretty soon. But what do you call it? Mickie James deserves the world. I mean, she's, whether it's been being out on injury and doing main event commentary, kind of sitting on the sidelines, and I know she's had a hand in trying to help a lot of these women find themselves while she's been there. I think there's a good chance she might become a trainer when she decides to end her career, which I hope isn't anytime soon at all, because I still think there's so much that she has left to give. And my hope is that this match is the beginning of seeing more women who haven't been in that spotlight shine. Like that's been the whole theme of the quarantine for us here at the Backstage Brawl, seeing a lot of people who don't get opportunities get to fully take advantage of the opportunities presented. Again, the Raw roster for the women looks very weird, but there's a lot of promise there. There's a lot of people who can fit in multiple different places, and I hope they don't get typecasted into just one role like they have so far.
And it's opening up too, because again, we're a couple weeks removed from the whole Iconics split up, so that basically avenue can go. I heard theories of maybe potentially Billie Kay going to SmackDown, carving out her own path, and maybe Peyton, because everyone seems to see Peyton.
I wish them both very well, because
yeah, of course,
it's not fair they had to break up when they barely got to do anything on the main roster.
That's a fact. So it's going to be very much intriguing to get into that. But as you mentioned, Mandy Rose is on Raw right now. Last week it was a whole big deal of which Miz confirming on Talking Smack that she's going to be on Raw, and she basically kayfabe went to social media, was coming at Miz. First, I looked at it and I was just like, "Oh, this kayfabe." But I was like, "Wait," I was like, "Why are you putting this on yourself?" Like in between seeing like Mandy Rose, you see the selfies, the whole soccer mom fits. She like boom, 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 and in the midst of it is like, "I'm gonna come at you, bitch." You like, wait, whoa, yeah, right. That was basically the. If you see the post, that's what.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I mean? I was like,
Mandy Rose, man.
that the New York came out in that one post. In that one post, that New York came out. She was like, "I'm gonna
I
come."
don't. I'm curious. Like I'm curious as to why she was moving. Like when you for those that don't know, when Jay told me what happened, it was over a phone call, and I hadn't heard anything yet because I didn't see that episode Talking Smack, which honestly we all should be getting more on because it's obviously not the same level as what it was before, but it's still fairly entertaining. Like they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. And Jay told me over the phone. I was like, wait, what? And then he was like, it's funny you say that because that's exactly what Mandy Rose wrote under the Instagram post. And I was just like, wow. Because, like, the trades have been very weird. It's actually something that I hope we get to talk about again in another one-on-one type video, maybe separate from the podcast, where, like, you talk about the history of how the brand split has gone in terms of exchanging talent, whether it's the draft or, the superstar shakeup format, how they've done supplemental drafts, how they've done explain trades, because there are inconsistencies all across the board. It's not always going to be perfect, granted, but the inconsistencies have run deep for a while. But in terms of Mandy Rose showing up, some people see her as the second coming of Trish Stratus aesthetically. Some people don't think that she's like crazy great in the ring. Some people think that she has the potential to be one of the top heels in the company, which is ironic because most of her notoriety on the main roster right now, like the best stuff she's done, has been swapping to the other side and being a babyface. So putting her on Raw is interesting because most of her stuff has been on SmackDown, outside of Absolution. And like I don't know where it feels random because she feels out of place, which offers up the opportunity for her to have a new, fresh start. Maybe they try something different with her. But Mandy Rose being on Raw breaks up the Otis thing. Like where does Otis go? Because that was one of the biggest focal points of the first like quarter and a half of 2020. So that's weird. Now it's back to Heavy Machinery, which for me as a fan of Heavy Machinery since NXT, like that's cool, right? But for a while they weren't even really a team. We didn't even know we thought they were broken up for a while. Like there's been a lot of inconsistencies with Otis. So I feel bad because Mandy was a big part of that, and now she has a new fresh start. It's like, now what does she do? Where does she go? Does she become a contender? Does she become a valet? Is Otis just gonna act like, does he go, like, it would be interesting if they did a depression angle, like if Otis went to depression, I lost my peach, or something. Like it just breaks up a flow, especially considering she's been a big part of SmackDown for the first like
Her
3/4 of the
storyline
year.
was SmackDown at a point.
Yeah, like
At a point, it was the storyline. There was like leading up to Money in the Bank, and even beforehand, that whole Dolph Ziggler,
yeah, who's also on Raw, I think.
yeah. So
Now. So it's
yeah.
like,
So it's just one of those things where like, what are you doing there? You did bring up something very interesting, to which I didn't necessarily think about until now. The whole notion that Mandy Rose could be like Mandy Rose heel, blonde, bombshell heel.
yeah.
Different times, and
It's
for all
a
intents
tale
and
of two Mandys.
yeah, and for all intents and purposes, like, yes, there's a world where, you could see a person that, even though it could be a life baby face, like a baby face in life, like I'm a Daniel Bryan, nice guy, could turn into a heel. Maybe it's not in the cards for people to naturally act that way. You see Mandy Rose interact in interviews and things of that nature. She does have those Trish Stratus tendencies where she's positive. I haven't necessarily seen her apply certain channeling frustrations. Not to say that she wouldn't, into being a heel. And that's fine.
Well,
So
yeah, there's room for that.
So it's going to be an interesting thing to see, like, how they're going to spin the whole, I just came off of a feud, turning myself face. My peak is a face. I'm on Raw. How
She could
long?
very well stay like that. Like, because think about it, like her career in many ways, shapes, and forms has been like you picked up where Eva Marie left off. You know, like Eva Marie's like the whole like the goddess thing when she was all red everything. You know, the way Corey like raved about Mandy Rose on commentary was extremely reminiscent, down almost down to the blueprint of what he was doing with Eva Marie. You know, for a while, like, so in a way, in a weird way, and I guess it's not that weird because 2020's brought a lot of surprises. This is the most Mandy Rose you've seen Mandy Rose because she's not playing someone else's archetype. You know, if anything, she's more close to Miss Elizabeth than she is to the Eva Marie kind of character that she was before. Well, not now because she's on Raw, but in terms of what we've seen the entire year, you know, it's really, really weird. And it's like you feel like the more natural fit based off of how she fits the aesthetic stereotype of just being like fine as hell, and most fine people can be like are projected to be conceited or, you know, snobbish, and she could pull that off and make it believable based off of that archetype, right?
Yeah.
But in the same token, like she's played like in a sense like the ideal girl for Otis. Like this is like you're the ideal, like everybody aspires to hope to get a Mandy Rose in life for this reason, as opposed to like the reason most people would see a Mandy Rose like that, you know, because of, you know, society and all this other stuff. So it's kind of interesting. It's like it's weird because like it would fit so much better the other way because it's the easy glove to fit in because it's like already set for you. But I kind of like it in a sense because it's like the fact that it's so different, it opens up opportunities for more people who fit that mold like a Mandy Rose to try something different and make it work. And on top of that, why break it when it is working? You know, like it's not like Mandy can't survive on her own.
And
No one said she had to be tied down to Otis. It's just it's weird because they split it without any closure. I think that's more so why it's weird.
And to top it off on that, like, you know, you just see the landscape of the Raw roster. As you said, it's a mismatch of Raw women's talent, but a lot of them have been towing the lines between face heel, face heel, face heel. I can't necessarily tell you what the dynamic between Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax is, but I could easily sit there and say that they're heel. They've been going up against the Riot Squad for the past couple of weeks. So,
and you brought it up with the Hurt Business and Retribution, both heel stables, and how they've been attacking each other. I think people have to understand. I think that's actually a good thing of the current product is like heels can hate each other the same way faces and heels can hate each other. You know, the same way baby faces can't always get along. You know, AJ Styles might not get along with Daniel Bryan considering their past history. Does it make them any less babyface on their own? No. Like it doesn't always have to be black and white with these things because the you know, that little gray area of, oh, we're having this interaction, I wasn't expecting that, it makes it more interesting and also can serve as springboards to go back to black and white storylines or just make new storylines that cause different interests. Like one of the biggest things people talk about when it comes to pro wrestling is how predictable it is. Having two heels hate each other and forcing you to pick between the two evils is something that, especially in the political climate we have right now, people can relate to all too well. You're taking things like that into consideration. Now you're starting to wonder, okay, now what do I do as a fan? You're being challenged. And then on top of that, it also can serve as inadvertent like foreshadowing of what would this person be like if they were a more redeeming or likable figure. You know, like there was a point in time where we couldn't see Randy Orton as a babyface. And what happened in 2010? Randy Orton was the dictator of Legacy. And he ended up becoming the redeeming figure of Legacy when he just killed two young boys in Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase. When they should be the ones that have every right to be upset, the fans chose Randy.
I slapped your daddy, rest in peace. And 3 years later, they cheered for me.
Right. And I'm sitting here like, in terms of storyline, like that's dysfunctional. And I'm not saying that it made sense, but it ended up working to Randy's advantage because what would he end up doing? Becoming the face of SmackDown for a short period of time in 2011 and having a very interesting series of matches with Christian. All great work rate-wise, like phenomenal. They had great chemistry.
Let's throw the SmackDown 5 around that time. You had your Mark Henry, Kane, Big Show, Christian, then you had Orton. And
let's not forget Sheamus.
yeah, hey, Sheamus was there too, man. He was the 1-800 fella around that time. We like to talk about that. You did mention the whole.
God damn it.
You did we remember. All right, we remember. All right,
he remembers too. He recently put out a post reminding people that he's cousins with Mr. Beaker from the Muppets. So everything's canon with Sheamus.
Yeah, exactly. I will say you did touch on the fact that shades of gray. You know, people could just like not mess with each other. Before you even get into SmackDown, your boy AJ Styles has said a lot recently, like a lot. Said, you know, of course, like if the Bullet Club would return, he'd like Finn and, you know, Adam Cole to be there. He said he may be retiring. He said he ain't never interested in working with one CM Punk.
Let's dive into it.
He just been going off.
Why, yo? I love how AJ's live streams have given us more of an insight into why we should care about AJ Styles more than like his TV stuff, which isn't taking away from his TV stuff because there's some pretty cool stuff there too. But it's like, I wish that WWE, of all the things WWE wants to take advantage of, you know, with like the whole like branding and making money off of these platforms and stuff, what they should be taking advantage of is making these characters more relatable before people do it on their own platforms on their own time. I should be knowing how AJ feels about certain talents from talking smack well before I go on a Twitch stream of him playing a game and him answering fan questions.
Yeah.
So shout outs to AJ for letting us inside of his head for a little bit. We don't pay rent, so he kicked us out, but it's all right. So like AJ, how many years have we been sitting here? Speaking of the Bullet Club, like let's just the three topics, right? Like AJ talking about a Bullet Club reunion. One, that is the most unique formation of the Bullet Club I've ever heard because you're so used to the main core Bullet Club and a new leader comes in and out and in and out, which is what makes this so interesting because these are three Bullet Club leaders. The original in Finn Fergal. You got one of the most prolific in AJ Styles who came in not too long afterwards. And then you have one of the pseudo leaders, Adam Cole, who had like the Ring of Honor congregation of it. Like he had that version. So it's like they're all tied to the click deal. And the fact that them as a trio sounds unstoppable. You take like three people who've dominated their domains, two of which are NXT, which is kind of ironic. And the fact they just fought each other is kind of cool. But like, that's a hell of a like mental, like that's a hell of a what if. AJ, Finn, and Adam Cole in the most balanced version of the Bullet Club for some reason in the WWE, which just kind of speaks like where is the balance when it comes to WWE booking wise. Like those three guys, you can rotate who's hot and popping each week and it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of crazy.
Why am I'm like, I heard the group iteration and all I could think about is a phenomenal forearm into a drop kick, ricochet off into a last shot.
Imagine it was like the last shot. The dude is like bent over, hurt from the last shot. AJ does a phenomenal form to a bent over on the ground person, knocks him out, pretty much out cold. And then Finn finishes him off with a 1916. Like that. Why? Like at that point, you're just asking, why didn't they cut the camera? This is not made for TV.
Why did I sign this contract?
Right. Like you shouldn't have fought that day. You made a mistake.
Oh, well, we may have another entrance on this deal. Here you go. Here you go, People's Champ.
Randall making the late time entrance. This is clutch. How you doing, Rand? How you doing?
Clutch, man. We talking Bullet Club reunions. We talking AJ Styles. Talking about we gonna need you to switch that camera over whenever you get
talking some dominant trios. Now we got another trio here. This is
trio.
I wasn't seeing this
sideways now. I don't know how you doing, man. But yeah, no, it's the fantastic thing. You could think of just like the whole AJ Styles element, right? The whole deal of him, Finn. I ain't gonna lie, I got a little slightly petty when he was like, I'd love to see Finn Balor and Adam Cole. I was like, bitch, it should be Finn Balor. It should be Finn Balor saying, I'd love to see AJ Styles.
Yeah.
I mean, I love AJ Styles on the grand scheme of things. We know.
I think Finn deserves it. Like AJ had his
right?
AJ and Adam Cole had their time in the like Finn just got his. He just got his now. You know what I'm saying? Like
even
you know it's crazy because like that is like when the Shield said there's no leader, we're all our own individuals, but like that would actually be it. Like especially after years of us going like Balor Club should have happened or the Full On Club should have happened with AJ, the Good Brothers, and Finn. Like that would be like in terms of making it up to the fans that we never saw any incarnation of the Bullet Club that was really good. That is the most unique combination you can make based off of who's on your roster. So
that's a fact, man. And honestly, if it's bound to happen, even if it's just the iteration of those three, guess what? They're the three remaining people who are a part of the club in the WWE. So please make it happen in the space of time that we could, because AJ Styles is apparently, saying like, hey, listen, if I blow out of the wheel, I'm out. And, again,
he's been saying that for a while.
Exactly. So shouts out to AJ Styles for being so candid on Twitch. Shouts out to a lot of people being candid on Twitch because this happened all year. Bianca Belair still, she's
except for Zelina getting her tail whipped on camera. I guess shout out for taking the whooping to push K. That's something. That's something. That's dedication right there.
So it was wild. But
how long was she in that room waiting to whoop her ass? I just those are my questions.
He was waiting. So Aleister Black was setting up, right? And then he was basically the producer. He was like, the director, excuse me. He was like, I want you to stay right here to her right elbow. You're going to be behind the lighting. I want you to see through the right lighting as she's like playing the game. Right when she just hits the finishing maneuver, so she good in Mortal Kombat because she stayed playing Mortal Kombat, just hop on her, just do the Luthez press type shit. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. She crazy, but
I would love to talk to Luthez if, like, God rest his soul. I would love to talk to Luthez and be like, hey, yo, how do you feel about one of your signature maneuvers or one of the moves people know you for the most being like one of the most, like, how do you feel about people just pouncing on each other and beating them in a full mount? Like, I just want to know how you feel, because that's not how the move used to be. It used to just be like a leap and a drop. Now, thanks, Steve Austin.
Right.
Stone Cold. Like,
right.
I got it.
And then you had the Orton where it's just
that was in the midst of everybody calling him Steve too. I think that was a whole troll.
Yeah, man. Bald hair, all bald headed Orton. So SmackDown.
Yeah.
This past Friday night, your boy Roman Reigns is Roman Lesnar right now. He's doing his old deal, and I'm gonna be real with you, because like, again, it was another show of which, I was busy. I didn't watch the whole thing full swing, but when I saw what I saw, your boy Roman Reigns is the fuck boy of the WWE right now. He don't show up to the party like on time. He don't show up to take the pictures. He don't show up for nothing. He just comes in, takes his bitch, and leaves. Like, that's all he does. That's all he does now. And it's honestly, in the space of like 3 weeks, he's turned, whether it be ratings or all these different types of stuff, he's turned SmackDown into this show which is being, relatively, respected. That being said, it wasn't only him. You had Bayley pulling an Eddie Guerrero-esque, like chair promo.
I don't know if it was intended to look that way visually, but considering how Bayley and Sasha are such Eddie fans, I would not be surprised if they got the inspiration from when Eddie was like, "Does that make me happy?" Like,
exact same words. Like, it was word for word, bar for bar.
and it's like, I hope that the rumors. We got a graphic from Mean Gene recently of like Bayley and Sasha for a Hell in a Cell photo, like promo poster. With Sasha have already done the Mandalorian, tapings and all that. Well, tapings, wrestling fan in me, like doing her stuff for the Mandalorian, and like there's just a part of me that doesn't want this to go to waste. Like I brought it up in the group chat when I said they could either Randy Orton and Edge this, where they unexpectedly find a way to make us and logically care about the story swapping stipulations around. Because, we praised Randy Orton and Edge for the fact that they took a last man standing match as the first match in the feud and were able to tie it into future matches and make it make sense to where we were still interested, considering last man standing is such a conclusive match for most wrestling feuds, right? The idea that Hell in a Cell is right around the corner and they could do that, and they've messed up on it in the past with women's matches. If they found a way to make it work, we'd have no choice but to applaud them for it. But Hell in a Cell is a little bit harder to maneuver that into than Last Man Standing. It's sort of like Last Man Standing is like, third, second tier, right? And Hell in a Cell is like first tier in like go-to conclusive matches for a feud or a storyline. So my hope is that Sasha stays out of action as the original reports expected her to, because there's so much they could do right with her being out and Bayley just, doing her. Now, I'm not expecting Bayley to like take articles of Sasha's clothing and put them on women and brainbuster them into steel steps like Eddie did with Ray's mask. Obviously, let's not do that. But what I'm saying is
different time.
Right. I mean, it was pretty cool when he did it, like looking back on it. But like, my thing is, Bayley has like a life beyond this too. So I would like for her career to. How did you get home so quickly?
Teleportation.
That is the title there? I don't believe that's your house.
The title, he's gonna angle it different, and he got the title.
Oh, it's shining. And it's shining. It's like Chris Rock and rims.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Beautiful.
I'll say this much about the whole Bayley, and I'll have People's Champ. By the way, guys, we have the People's Champ here, Randy Lewis, live and direct after work.
Hollywood Lewis.
He's
on his Hollywood Rock deal.
He's on his Roman time. He's on his Roman time. It's just like
show up. It's still Simone shows up and leaves.
That's it. That's all he does. That's what he does. He's from a different world. But this whole Bayley Sasha thing, if they were to do Hell in a Cell, this is just my opinion. We had a conversation off camera about the whole Big E thing and the culmination happening at Mania, or, basically having whatever payoff happen at Mania. If you are going to do a whole thing of Sasha versus Bayley at Hell in a Cell, my opinion, I wouldn't have the culmination be at WrestleMania. If you're going to do that, you got to, similar to the Randy Orton Edge, you got to keep it going. And I would say I would probably culminate it in let me know what you think about this, by the way, at Survivor Series. Loser leaves brand.
I would say that would be a good way to culminate the feud and give them leeway to do something else for Mania. But
I'll give you this anecdote too as well. Let's say in this scenario, because again, Hell in a Cell is one of those matches where it's supposed to be the culmination, similar to how Last Man Standing was, and Edge won, the person who was returning, and the babyface beat the person who they were supposed to beat. Sasha beats Bayley for the title, ends that reign, and then she ends it in a manner of which is emphatic enough. It takes her out for a sustained amount of weeks, similar to how Bayley did to Sasha. That's the only reason why I brought up the whole.
I could understand that. Here's my thing, and I'll let Randy get his piece in a minute because he hasn't been able to speak at all. But I will say that if I were doing it and they wanted to go down the route of Hell in a Cell, right? I would capitalize on Bayley's viciousness, and I would have Sasha go into Hell in a Cell not 100%, and have her put up the fight of her life on some Taker Lesnar type mess, and have Bayley win and put her back out of action for a longer period of time to set up for the Rumble. Because, in my opinion, with a feud that has, in terms of immediate, in terms of immediate recency, 3 years worth of build, and in terms of long-term recency, about 5 years worth of build within WWE alone, not counting the indies, right? I think it does warrant a Mania conclusion in this particular instance, and I think that they can make it work. Like, I'm not saying it's the best idea, but if you want to capitalize on how vicious Bayley is and have Bayley come across as like a real deal threat, because for the past couple months, it has been a lot of chicken shit stuff from her as a heel. She's excelled character-wise, chicken shit, talking smack, no pun intended, to everybody and doing her thing. But if you really want to cement her as like she's not a heel to mess with, and you're gonna have to take this belt from her by force because she's lost her enforcer, right? She's lost her enforcer. She's lost her insurance policy. Now she's her own insurance policy. Having her take out that insurance policy at Hell in a Cell, put her out of action for a couple months. So from October, let's say it's at the end of October, Hell in a Cell, right? Take her out November, December, and then in mid January or whenever Royal Rumble happens, taking Sasha out for all those months and having Sasha return in the midst of the Rumble and take Bayley out and cost her having a good Mania. Like, let's say Bayley lost the title earlier in the night, or you have a situation where Sasha wins the Rumble to fight Bayley, and they have in a similar vein to Edge and Orton, they have a conclusive one-on-one match at Mania, rivaling what they did at Takeover Brooklyn, right? I think that might be the avenue they go down. Or if they use this path to get to Mania, that's probably the smartest way to do it. Because that way you get the immediate rating pop. Oh, Sasha came back. Everyone's mad. They do it right storyline-wise at Hell in a Cell, and then Sasha can take an actual leave of absence to build to a better return. That's what I think they might do. Or that's what I think they should do with this path. I don't know if they will do it. You never know. Like, we just be sitting here and be thinking of things, and just like I put my head in that dresser that Randy has right behind him, and I sit there because we how many lobs got to go out of bounds until you get a basket? You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be pissing me off sometimes, but that's what I think they're gonna do personally.
Hot tag to People's Champ. What you think, man? What you think about this? You got the Hell in a Cell match being, rumored. How you booking this?
First off, finally! No, I'm joking. First off, hello, what's up, everybody? Second of all, in terms of this Hell in a Cell thing going on, I honestly, I recently just saw it this morning amongst with other things that they were rumoring in terms of Sasha. Like I said last week, this story is too great to just culminate or just be rushed. It has to cook a little bit. And I thought after when Pamela, aka Bayley, took out Sasha, I thought that should have taken her out for an extended period of time.
Agreed.
When you're trying to tell a story, and from the WWF or WWE perspective, it's always long term. It's never something and they've been telling the story for the last year and some change now. But the payoff should not culminate so soon in terms of just bringing her back in order to entice this story or go to the peak.
Yeah, it warrants more.
As been told. So having her come back 2 weeks after being taken out is premature. And I know she's coming off the heels of, in terms of being now displayed as a part of the cast of season 2 of The Mandalorian. WWE wants to cash on that right when it's hot. That's something that you could have done, even without her there. I mean, you didn't have to, when The Rock was taken out by Stone Cold on, the night after WrestleMania, you didn't need much you really didn't need much to advertise the Scorpion King with The Rock physically there. I mean, he advertised WWE, through promoting the movie and making sure he shouts out where he's, his promotion. Sasha could do the very same thing. I mean, obviously during COVID times are different. It's not 2001. And, it's also a pandemic. She can definitely do it through what we're doing right now. This podcast is being recorded through a Zoom, and she could do the interview, through this medium and basically advertise what's going on in terms of questions that's being asked of the interviewer. So as it pertains to Bayley, coming back to Bayley now, as it pertains in terms of where she, that story should go, I've always said that this story is too great to basically just, end before a WrestleMania. And I know many people say that, well, it doesn't need a WrestleMania moment for Sasha, she needs that moment because every one of those horsewomen had a moment in the sun at WrestleMania, but Sasha, you know. And I know this may be something that may be turning off certain people's walls. Of course, when we get another opportunity again, you have to understand, all right? Regardless of the talented woman that's on the roster, this is a business. The WWE is a business that banks on stars. The 4 horsewomen are their star power that drives in revenue. At the end of the day, if you have them both culminate their story at WrestleMania, it tells a far good story. You know, like Ty said earlier, you know, in terms of spicing up that feud, I originally had an idea of basically teasing her coming back at Survivor Series and then physically coming back at Royal Rumble, costing Bayley an opportunity to either causing Bayley to either lose a title.
Wait a minute. Do my eyes deceive me?
Now it's time for me to cut a Rock promo. What in the blue hell is going on?
What's coals in all this?
You know,
What's up, guys?
I've missed one episode of the podcast. I have one blemish on my perfect attendance. Y'all motherfuckers, I should be saying a different expletive. Y'all motherfuckers are just jumping out of the woodwork, and then
it's the Roman effect. People are showing up, going to their punchline.
Stay your ass
Indeed
home.
it is.
You know
It's the
what?
Roman effect.
I agree with Gene for 1 week, for 3 seconds. Stay your ass home. No, I'm happy to see you, Eric. I actually thought you were gonna be here from the jump of this. It's good to see you though, man.
Nah, it's good to see you guys, man. It's been a rough week.
What's up, brother?
We discussing this whole Sasha Bayley situation. You know, we got the graphic up, you know, with Hell in a Cell, Sasha basically overseeing Bayley on the cage holding the SmackDown women's title. It was one of those things where we were kind of discussing, like, is this really happening? And if it is, like, should it, you know?
I will say I agree with Randy. I don't agree with the whole business thing only because, like, we know that. But that's on them for not pushing enough people, in my opinion. But I do agree that this match does warrant a Mania match. Does it have to be for the title? Not necessarily, but I do think if you spend, like I said, with all the backstory in mind, there's very few matches they're building the Mania that deserve this spot, in my opinion. Like, this does warrant a Mania match.
It's like
every storyline.
And you have to basically consider this. You know, and you're right. It doesn't need a title to tell this to fully culminate the story. You would never tell a Rock and a Stone Cold Steve Austin, your story's so great that it has to end before WrestleMania. That rivalry itself, just saying Rock and Austin, instantly WrestleMania. That's the first thing you think about.
3 of them.
Even though it didn't happen at one of the big 4, HBK and Shawn Michaels.
Oh,
that's a big 4-man event. Like that drives enough, you know.
Triple H. You talking about HBK?
Triple H and Shawn Michaels? Is
that
what you said?
HB Shizzle.
Hey, no, we know that was in it. We're saying, like,
yes.
Was it Triple H and Shawn Michaels? Is that what you said?
Yes.
That's what you. Okay.
I'm
just.
Shit.
I didn't know.
Paul Levesque. How about that?
$5 $99. Yeah.
They need to actually hold off on Sasha's
return.
Yeah.
Return from TV. I feel like Bayley needs to focus on her next few opponents. I mean, how long do we have till Mania? Honestly, we're sitting here talking about Mania like Mania didn't just pass. You know what I'm saying? This is how fast the year's going by. So you can hold off.
2020 need to go fast.
How many more months we have until the next Mania? I think at the max maybe 6 months, maybe less than that, maybe like 6 or 5. So hold off on it. Hold off. You can have her come back at the Rumble. You can have her come back, honestly, at Survivor Series and just keep her off TV for a little bit. Yeah. It's just the simple fact of she's just looming in the background because you know it's going to happen eventually.
How you make it happen matters.
Exactly. How you execute the whole story is how it happens.
This is my fucking thesis.
And you don't do it at Hell in a Cell. I feel like Hell in a Cell, you give somebody else that opportunity. Now if you want to bring Sasha back at Hell in a Cell, It's a little premature, but okay, I'll still take it. But I don't feel like they should have a match at Hell in a Cell.
I was just saying, Eric, if they bring her back at Hell in a Cell, Sasha should not be 100%. Have a Lesnar Taker 03 type moment where Taker's walking in injured, but he's about to give that work to Lesnar, and then Lesnar ultimately wins. That's what they should do with Sasha and Bayley if they have her come back at Hell in a. Because like we said, Vince thinks that the women's division's weak. He's trying to make all these moves to make it feel more credible, and we know that they're not going to we saw it with CM Punk. CM Punk was hot the minute he left Money in the Bank, right? And he came back not too long afterwards when everyone agreed he should have, including himself, agreed he should have been out for months. So WWE's not going to give us the satisfaction of that. But if you're going to work with these pieces, right, you might as well make it make sense and help it make a more unique story, like we were saying with Seth Rollins and the Mysterio family earlier, Jay. Like, if you're going to do it, you got to do it right and make us care.
Right. The only difference with the Mysterio storyline is that Rollins right now is just trying to put over Dominik before they break away from this. I actually read an article on Bleacher Report stating who would be the guy to take the Universal title off of Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns is now basically the top heel in the company. And they listed Seth Rollins as a babyface because look at it this way. Roman and Seth always have history together. Yeah. Roman now, the roles are reversed. Roman is now the heel. Seth can now be the babyface.
No, he can't.
But I agree. This is where I agree. I disagree with Bleacher Report. I disagree with Bleacher Report because if your initial plan as SmackDown Creative was to push Big E as this top babyface on SmackDown, you need to have Big E chase the Universal title. You need to give him like a Daniel Bryan-esque type of push. You need to push him to where he is facing former world champions, and then eventually he gets to Roman eventually.
What in the Mr. Kennedy?
It doesn't have to be.
I don't think he needs a Daniel Bryan-esque run.
No, I mean, yeah, that's an avenue.
When I mean like that, I don't mean like the whole thing entirely. But
he needs an inspiring rise to the top. Yeah.
Right. He needs more world championship matches underneath his belt. When I mean that, I mean like
big time matches.
He's in a feud with Sheamus right now, which I think is great. So Sheamus is a former world champion. Miz was a former world champion. The next person he might face might be another former world champion. And then you get to Roman. And then when you get to Roman, you fail. But then you come back and you get better. And it just builds up until you get to Mania.
So to that, like, because myself and Ty off cam, we were having this discussion, I believe, back on Saturday, and we were basically saying, like, well, at least from my perspective, I gave the avenue of maybe instead of the culmination happening next calendar year's WrestleMania, we could just give him the proper build through having a secondary championship, because everyone's kind of been looking at singles push. WWE Championship, that like everyone kind of goes, oh, you're a single star, you're going to be world champion. And it's like, hold up, pump the brakes. Especially with your implying your logic of earning the ranks and building yourself up through these wins and through these feuds with like these former world champions, getting to the world champion and losing and then building up. You can apply the Intercontinental Championship as a vehicle to show that, hey, I can materialize the success, and then I become the success as opposed to jumping at.
I don't think that. I mean, I'm not against your idea either for him getting the Intercontinental Championship either, but I think that as a whole, they have more plans for Big E, because let's be honest, we would all be sitting here lying if we don't think that Big E is some type of world championship material. I mean, he's proven himself more than likely. So, him getting the IC belt, I mean, does he really want to be in the mix of the AJ, Sami Zayn and Jeff Hardy thing? It's not bad.
No. You want to know what the thing is? It's like you don't want to spend somebody's miles too soon, where it's like, with this, it's one of those things where it's like, this is an avenue for, we're still on the topic of SmackDown. I'm proud of us. Yeah. We're sitting here like, if we get him to the World Championship already, a year from now, are we going to look at Big E with like long-term potential, or are we going to feel like he's reached it already? You know what I mean? Like, you got to look at it like, especially when people are complaining like the IC title doesn't matter. They don't do long-term stuff like this and that. It's sort of like what we were saying earlier, Jay. Like, you know, people turn people heel for the purpose of giving somebody a more interesting storyline, right? But is it necessary to turn somebody heel, or is it necessary to just make them interesting? Are there other ways you can make them interesting? And for a guy like Big E, you know, the Intercontinental title was his first belt. It was his first championship. And people forget he was Intercontinental champion. People forget he was NXT champion. Why not have it come full circle and show, yo, I can be a champion. Don't worry about it. I will be on top one day. But let me show you what I can do with some gold before I get the big gold, you know, on the big dog. You know what I mean?
And especially to top it off of that, because you did mention like I believe you said the Daniel Bryan push, right? Not as it pertains to him as a wrestler, like, you know, thing, but kayfabe wise, he has a bigger hurdle than Daniel Bryan ever had in that path. He was already a single star, Daniel Bryan. He was already a Money in the Bank winner. He was already a world champion. He already had that single success. It was just getting to the point of which he was main event Daniel Bryan, where we were looking at him where it was like, oh, because not to say that, you know, we didn't see it, but we had the spurts of it where we can kind of condition ourselves.
Nobody takes Big E like seriously as of right now as someone who can headline a pay-per-view. When we know he can do it, we know he has a potential, even because New Day, Big E is the most tenured member match-wise of New Day. In terms of their tag matches, he's always one of the people in the mix. It's very rare you see Woods and Kofi, and it usually happens on television, right? As a single entity, it's hard for people to picture him as a main eventer of a pay-per-view, even down to the early days of NXT, when he was the guy as NXT champion before they had like regular events. So it's like, if you build that story properly, by the time we're talking next year, Eric, and we're not picking on you because you Big E too, but we're saying is like, by next year, you're gonna be talking about Big E for 10 years as opposed for just one.
I mean, I'm all for the slow build. So you could give me that, and I'll definitely appreciate it when it does, accumulate. So I'll definitely take that.
It's a slow cooker.
And also on that, you know, because Ty's point, he's mentioned it ad nauseum throughout the iteration of just SmackDown having this crop of talent. You imagine the guys in the meantime who's going to get the limelight. You got Nakamura, you have Cesaro.
Because you said, do we really want to see Big E with AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, and Sami Zayn? I do. Expletive redactive. I do.
Know. Maybe it's the storyline.
Your rivalry, to be honest.
Damn, imagine imagine a promo between this Sami Zayn and Big E. I rest my case.
Sami Zayn right now is like a prophet on the loose right now. He's just preaching.
He is Seth Rollins, but delusional. Not like scary delusional, like comedically delusional.
Yeah, and then you have Big E, where all Big E has to do is just, you mad, bro? Is that all you do? Gyrate your hips and this. I'm the Intercontinental champ.
Is it bad? I could picture Big E cutting a promo being like, Sammy, you want to pop, huh? Oh, you want to pop? And he just starts popping his pecs because he has a titty gimmick.
Yes.
Like, I could picture that. Speaking of Seth Rollins, hell no. I'm going to tell you why I don't want that. Not because, listen here, Bleacher Report. Y'all trying to get a pop, man. It's not your job to try to get yourselves hard. That's WWE's job.
Yeah.
The point being is Seth and Roman have been around each other way too much. Keeping them separate is a great thing. I want a Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, Royal Rumble 03 moment where they've been so good as individuals. When they come back together, you're sitting there like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
They don't feel like the Hardy Boys no more. But I remember when they were the Hardy Boys. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want that.
They have to execute. I mean, listen, I already know that they're trying to do another draft soon, wherever that happens.
No.
Will they trade Rollins to SmackDown?
They better not.
I hope not.
Let me tell you something right now. If Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns fight each other now, two heels, I'm voting for Roman, and I'm gonna give you two reasons why. One don't make sense. The other one makes sense completely. One, Roman makes more sense than Seth in terms of what he's saying. They both are jackasses, but Seth is fucking delusional. Like, reasonably delusional. And two, Seth is the real heel here. Does anyone remember when Seth beat Roman Reigns with his crotch, that catching pedigree?
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, the mid-air. Yeah, that
In
was
the mid no, Roman's the baby face again. At that point, especially with like the momentum he has right now, like it's not gonna work the way they wanted it to work in the first place.
It's a fuckboy character in Roman Reigns versus a Messiah Seth Rollins. Which one are you going to choose? That is what it is. I do want to touch real quick. Shout out to SmackDown because like a lot of intriguing points have come off that, but really do want to touch quick on AEW. 2 talking points from this past week, at least from my end, because of course Cody Rhodes with the whole deal after the big announcement, and everyone was like, "Why are you popping up on after AEW all that stuff?" But there was 2 points. One, Miro, the debut of one formerly named Rusev, Miro, and another point of which Jim Ross, I saw it just recently, came at Jim Cornette. It was just like, yo, relax. Times change. Stop criticizing AEW. Do want to start off on that right quick. What's our thoughts on like Ross just coming at Jim Cornette and basically tell him, sit down, be humble?
I'll take this one because I read that this morning and
Go ahead, because I have an opinion on that, but go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, because I had a discussion with the NAAW page on Facebook, and we had a discussion on that. Shout out to you guys on Facebook, by the way. Okay. In some ways, Cornette was kind of right by what he was saying. Like I'm not gonna like. There's a lot of times when you just tune Cornette the fuck off. Hell, even Vince Russo made a point this week, and I'm like, it's fucked up when Vince Russo makes a point that's actually accurate.
Yeah.
So what Cornette said wasn't all the right wrong, because there are times he's outright out there in terms of characters, but in terms of the purity of the sport, in terms of the industry as a whole, Cornette more than likely always has the best interest of the industry. He always has their best interest at heart. And he wears his heart on his sleeve. It's kind of like the guy that asked him that question. Still real to me, damn it. And for JR, I get where JR is coming from as well in terms of defending the company, but let's not act like the previous, because we're going on October now, the previous 11 months of All Elite Wrestling was sunshine and rainbows. Sure, everything started off great, but then you hit a moot point, but things starting to pick up again slowly. But at the same time, there's a lot of shit that happened in between it, especially dealing with Matt Hardy and everything else. And I respect what he's saying. It's like, listen, not every fucking match needs to be, high octane and this and the third. And I know it's a different generation, and I get that, and I'm all for it. But I'm also of the mind to also believe that sometimes less is more, because the payoff for matches, when you get to that blow off, you're doing the same thing. There's nothing that distinguishes that match from the next, because you keep doing it routinely every week. So there's nothing to say, oh, what's the difference between the first time we faced off on TV compared to, the pay-per-view event. There's no distinct difference. Sometimes you have to slow it down a little bit.
You gotta hot tag your boy Eric B, man. You can't just get the finisher. You can't just give the finisher away. You can't finish a spam. You gotta
now Eric hit him with the diamond cutter, man. I already hit him with the I already hit him with the combo.
So let's look at it this way. The anniversary of AEW is coming up soon. This is something that they've been promoting. So to Randy's point and to Cornette's point, AEW has not been the best product all year round. It's had its ups, it's had its downs. We've even criticized it. So to an extent, yes, I agree with Cornette. And I agree with Jim Ross. Jim Ross is an employee at AEW. Of course, he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's defending the company that signs his paycheck. I agree with that. But let's look at it this way. Their matches, at least their gimmick matches and things that they've had, have all made us scratch our heads. All of it. The booking has made us scratch our heads. The gimmick matches that happen on TV. Sometimes we get pay-per-view matches that's supposed to be on the pay-per-views that happen on TV. So it's just like they kind of do little things to me, they're like WWE. They do things just a little bit different. Everything is a little backwards.
There was a pyramid of Canadian destroyers.
Right. There was that too.
I hate
There's
that
a lot,
goddamn move.
and then on top of that, they're still in this. We care about WWE so much that we're gonna take their guys and take them from up underneath them, and give and make them. We're gonna make you care about them for this many months, and then next thing you know, it's just like.
Sometimes it takes 2 weeks. They care about it for 2 weeks, and then
the next thing you know, it's just like what happens after that? Go ahead.
Like, here's my thing: Jim Cornette, fried chicken in Ethiopia joke aside, Jim Cornette is one of those individuals. Got Randy Corpse in here. Jim Cornette, like Randy said, he's like, I guess this is the devil's advocate. He's like a Trump type character where it's like, nope, he can say something in the stupidest fashion, but if you sit and dig through the mud a little bit, sometimes there might be a point. Like Jim Cornette, typically, he's like, he has the right intention in what he wants to say sometimes, and usually you can find the point in what he's saying, but he says it so terribly. Who the hell is going to take it seriously sometimes? My thing with Jim Cornette saying what he said at AEW and Jim Ross is like, it's in the middle.
Yeah.
Like everybody said, everybody knows AEW has not had a great year, but a lot of people want to overlook it because, one, it's their first year as an existing company. Two, they've been begging for something different and American in pro wrestling. Because let's be honest, half the people who jumped to New Japan, that was their biggest alternative. That was the only competition they had, right? Now a lot of those New Japan fans are going back to AEW is like, this is my alternative now. Finally, there's an American wrestling promotion that I can focus on, completely understand all the stories and this and that and the third thing. Not taking anything away from New Japan, but that's unfortunately how a lot of American fans are reacting to this, right? And a lot of them are just happy that there's something new. It might not be a great toy, but they're just happy it's something new because they've been messing with the old broken toy for so long, right? We're in a situation right now where sadly AEW is being given a lot of grace periods when the reality is they should be banking on a lot of the stuff they have. A lot of the talents that they have, that they've gotten, they haven't used very well, to everybody's point, right? A lot of the things that they've tried to do have become very hit and miss. Now they kind of have a cool reset button to work with, but Jim Cornette, he's not completely wrong, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like everybody
If
else.
they want to prove him wrong, they have to, at this 1 year anniversary show, they have to make this one of the best shows that they've ever had. They have to make this the top show.
I also think, and this is kind of like long term, if they want to prove him wrong, and all of us wrong, I think that a big case would be honestly not making your new your WWE castaways into people who are only relevant because of the prominent workers that you're working with. Like the biggest match that I've seen Luke Harper be a part of was against Dustin. And then not to say that, you know, Dustin, like, because he toes the lines between the WWE castaway, but he is the brother of Cody Rhodes. So it's like, you know, so
put your guys to work.
Exactly.
Just hustle like crazy.
Exactly.
And then hold on before we just like move on from this.
Yeah.
And then the whole Miro thing. I like the fact that Miro is now in AEW. I feel like he needed a reset. There was a rumor going around that either he would go to New Japan or he would go to AEW. Either way, he was going to have some type of AEW affiliation. So I'm glad to see him there. I don't know what his role is so far. I know from the Instagram, they kind of like are hyping him up to be like this really fly just enforcer, I guess. Because they were like, yeah, because they pointed out on his Instagram like he was wearing a Gucci shirt and Gucci pants that were over $1,000, and then some Yeezys that were like $700. So I don't know why they're putting so much emphasis on it. I guess that's part of his character now. But hopefully, well, of course, you know, everybody's character is different from when they come from
Yeah, right
WWE
now,
to
it's like-
AEW.
I was the first fresh one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now it's like he's gonna be like this fly guy that's just this badass enforcer. So we'll see what happens with his character, but I'm glad to see him jump ship.
Yeah, we wishing him the best. Hopefully, it is not one of the cases that we've seen from before. But if we expect anything from Rusev, of course, he's gonna provide some entertaining and
hopefully some good heavyweight wrestling.
That's a fact. There's gonna be a lot of hosses that he's gonna be
And he can get himself over by himself, which is beautiful.
It's gonna be on. But unfortunately, we do have to cut this short. Thank you to People's Champ and Diamond Cutter for making an appearance. You already know Golden Child. You already know Kid Dynamite. We out.